G'day guys, I'll do a speed review for the Golden Eagle meeting from Rosehill on Saturday, 4th of November, Melbourne Cup Eve. So I'll try and get through this as quick as I can. Race 1 was the 1200 metre highway handicap. Not a lot to see here, I didn't think. Listomania, obviously a talking point. This is the start, sort of tax on late, so that put it out of the race. Overall, a solid enough tempo. They probably went fast. They go out pretty even time and click it up a bit from the 8 to the 6, and then they come home pretty slow. That allows Tribeca Star to come from the back of the pack with National Willer, so that's him dropping back to sort of third last. He's a pretty dominant winner here. Forgive runs, Listomania, obvious. I didn't think Discreet Miss was too bad, sitting outside the leader. Ends up taking the front. Love Shack. It was a bit keen, got a head up. I don't like that from a future perspective. Didn't think it did enough wrong to run as poorly as it did, so it's probably its own racing manners. Sammy Ballerina in the middle, he's a little bit unlucky. This is Discreet Miss sitting outside the leader, getting clear now. Tribeca Star coming down the outside. Pretty dominant win, probably the only horse in the race other than Listomania, who we know has got quirks, that has, genuine ability. Not bad efforts from Discreet Miss back on the inside there, and extra smart Sammy Ballerina sort of a bit tough and by. Yeah, not a race that's really worth talking about too much. I don't think from a positive or negative perspective, they were all pretty steady. Race 2, and this is I'm in it to win it. I'm in to win. Having its first start for Gay Waterhouse over 1,500 metres in a benchmark 78. This is a pretty good win, and the sign of a horse that's suited to the stable. So its first trial was pretty average. It was okay. Second trial it improved, and then what we see here is the product of those two trials. And getting to the races, first up 1,500, ran a very solid sectionals to the 800 metre mark, and ran pretty quick overall time. Sort of gassed the horses behind. They had nothing left to chase with. So that's a great sign for a horse first up. Maybe be a little bit reluctant second up unless the horse sort of rises in distance or 3 weeks between runs. But Gay does have these horses bounce off these sorts of runs better than anyone else. So I'm into wins in front, completely dictating, but is doing so of its own accord. He's running time up in front. All the horses behind basically had their chance. Peace Officer did jump well and then sort of got caught wide and back towards the edge, and is a bit of an excuse, but the rest of them, pretty much had their chance. Diamond Model ends up running up the fence at second. It's 4 for Cindy, race close to the speed and battled on okay, but she's, I think, found her level to a certain degree. Nails Murphy had its chance, pretty average. Kaido down the outside wasn't too bad, but again, it was pace assisted and had fitness edge over the winner. I didn't think Let Me Rain was too bad, so I'll go back and show you Let Me Rain because I thought it was worth highlighting for a similar race or maybe something easier. So I'm into win, never really looks like getting beat. Diamond Model chases it to work about a length late. Very good first up effort. Kaido down the outside, Peace Officer not too bad. It's a bit of a, so this is Let Me Rain, sort of restrained a bit to trail the leader. They obviously were going quick, gets its mouth open a bit. Was only second up here off a good run first up. Beaten off early, which is never, a great sign, but a pretty one-pace type. And this is it here. I just thought its last 50 metres was decent. So, Nails Murphy and these horses had colder runs behind it, Dream Hour, and then through the line, he's just fighting back. So that's a sign to me that this horse could probably get further. If it finds a race where it can dictate and it doesn't have to chase a horse like I'm in to win from sort of a no cover position, which is what it did here, it could improve. So, something, whether it's next start or the start later, 1,800 metres, something like that, would be a perfect horse around Canterbury, 1,550. I don't know when they're opening that track back up, but they may do with quarantine ending there the next couple of weeks. It's a horse that may find a race that's suitable next start or the start after Let Me Rain. Race 3, 1,900 metre benchmark 78. This is a pretty good win. I think the race is a pretty average race, but a very good win from Peshmerga. So jumped in front, Peshmerga, and then eventually this horse, which is a bit of a lunatic, is it called Extreme Freedom, comes around and takes the front. They run very, very fast sections up in front to the 800 metre mark. They slow it down, but still quick to the 600, and then they come home quite slow, which is, they're entitled to considering how fast they've gone. Peshmerga works to lead and then gets attacked by Extreme Freedom, and then has the sort of ability or the tenacity to stick its head out and hold them quite comfortably at the end. So they go quite quick. There's Extreme Freedom going to the front. Ends up popping up outside leader, under pressure coming to the bend, so another good sign. You've got Queenmaker on its back. Kaboshi looks like it's bolting. There's one horse back there that's a bit unlucky, and Olympic Gate sort of runs up in behind them. It gets a bit messy here, Osbred Flirt. I think the race is pretty steady overall, but the time's, okay. It's right on even time, but that's off a fast section. So I think First Light down the outside is probably the horse that's flattered. I didn't think Kaboshi did a bad job, even though it had a nice run. It sort of got keen in behind. Prentice Rider. But all credit to the winner. Osbred Rising Sun, a little bit of a return to form, but as I said, those horses that were back in the field certainly had more than every chance here. And yeah, it's, as I said, all credit with the winner. It's led, done all the work, sat outside the lead, hit the front very early and fought them all off. Kaboshi's had its chance to beat it. First Light's had an absolute dream run back in the pack with the tempo to suit. Queenmaker had a nice run, but sort of pokes along there, and Olympic Game's unlucky with Osbred Rising Sun also running out of room. So I think the flattered run was First Light. Clearly, Kabosh was a little bit also, and all merit with the winner there, who can certainly win another race at a similar level without surprising off that very strong win, even a little bit further, no doubt. Race 4, another towards the 1,200-metre benchmark 78, fillies and mares. Nothing really happens here. It's just steady tempo up front, but they control the speed. I thought Ballroom Bella was maybe a touch plain, but in reflection, probably still a touch plain, to be honest. It's a bit of a funny race. So you've got Chalonte get stuck wide here and has to work, but they are going slow. Show High, which was very soft in the betting, obviously not ready to go first up. Salasano, which he's won at big odds a couple of times. Nathan Doyle's done a great job with a few of these Derby runners, sort of progressing him through the grades quickly. Certainly has an absolute dream run, but this is a much better class than what it's seen. It did have a bit go its way here. You've got Afterlight was taken back, Junquera back. Leandro is not a bad run here. Chalante, as we said, sort of working in the run. I don't think that's its go. Sitting, pulling and being ridden back forward off a slow tempo. This is much more of a fast tempo closer. So a complete forgive for Chalante. The leader, you can see, just be dictated at every conceivable possible chance in the race. You sort of roll forward. It doesn't really quicken away from them with one pace, and certainly had its chance. Show High obviously wasn't ready to go fresh. Chalante's had to do those, back and forward moves. Leander's had a nice run back on the paint, and Junquera, I think this is a much better performance. We saw a very keen first upset outside the leader, over race, did a lot wrong and beaten a long way there. Still did a few things wrong in this race, missed the start out the back this time, but I think, that should be the freshness knocked off her. If she finds a race with true tempo next time out, she's a horse that can certainly improve Junquera. So for me, the winner, a dream run. Do I want to find her progressing up in grade? Probably not, but her racing style is allowing her to be in the right place at the right time at the moment, and she's done that 3 times in a row now. Ballroom Bella had its chance. Leandro was good for probably further. It was a nice clean-out run. Junquera right on track. Show High, not too bad first up, but was chasing a slow tempo there, so you want improvement to entertain it. Chalante was a forgive. Afterlight was a forgive. Bit of a nothing race, to be fair. Race 5 and God bless Mars Mission finally caught this horse. This is it out the back. Overriding who will go for a spell after this was disappointing here, but understandably something not right with the horse. Goes for a break. They run along in sort of a very even tempo here. If anything, it's slightly above, but it's within the boundaries of a pretty even, solid tempo. Time overall is not too bad, nothing special, but above average. They look like they're going quicker than they are. Piney River works quite hard to get to the front, but it's not going crazy fast. Sort of maintains that tempo to the 600-metre mark. They do slow down the last 600, but only, slightly, and it's slightly below average. It's nothing terrible. Had a perfect run in transit. Mars Mission pushes Overriding out of the way, which is the first sign that the horse was probably not going as well as expected. Absolute ideal run for Zoe Promised in the 1-1. It had its chance. Say You had its chance. Wizard of Oz had its chance up outside the leader after being crossed early. Worked a little bit. Another good run. But, the winner's sort of a little bit of an underrated horse. Had a couple of questionable rides its last few and finally put it all together with a nice ride and set of circumstances to suit it. House of Kev wasn't too bad through the line. I think the merit was all with the winner there, and I'd be forgiving overriding his whole preparation. Next time, I'd be making a note there that it just didn't come up, and I'd be interested to see how it comes back next time. The 4 pillars, and here's a race I actually want to talk about, just more of the circumstances of this race. So this is what I call an anchor drop. They went quite fast early. So the one pace, this race was full of one pace horses. Anytime I'm talking to anyone, that's trainers, jockeys, whatever, about these sorts of races, when you're on one pace horses and you've been used early, you've kind of got to bite the bullet and then try and maintain a reasonable tempo. Otherwise, what you do is if you drop the speed off rapidly, all the horses that haven't worked, that are back in the pack now, get into the race cheaply. So you've expended energy early in the race, which is what this horse in front here is doing, Resistible. He'll slam the brakes on in a minute, and then it brings all those horses midfield that haven't worked as hard into the race without having to work to get the leaders. If they maintain that solid gallop, not saying go 100 miles an hour, but an even tempo, then the horses in behind have to work to get there to catch them. So a horse like Sweet Mercy, who's back on the inside here, number 16, who has a nice sharp turn of foot, it's done no work early, then you can see they bunch up here, and this horse is now sort of 4 or 5 lengths closer without having to spend any energy at all. Once it gets the gap, it goes bang, and can use its turn of foot to beat the horses that are more one-paced up on speed, that have been softened up early, now have to try and quicken off a soft tempo, which they're not really capable of, and that makes them vulnerable. So I think this is I'll probably try and put this race out as a race to have a look at as an example of an anchor drop. It's not a savage one, but it's just an example of a race where a horse that has a turn of foot, it's been left alone at the first part of the race, is able to overcome what's not a savage tempo on paper. It's like slow tempo on paper, but they've sort of worked hard early, dropped it right off, it's got into the race, then it can use its turn of foot. I think it's a poor overall race. They slowed down, from a couple of lengths above average to the 8 to below by the 6, and then even further from in the last 600. So overall, a very poor quality event, and considering it was $500,000, even more so. But the winner just had everything to go its way. You go back and watch this replay of the start before. This was another mini result for us in my service, just because it looked silly odds after what was a pretty questionable ride. The start before looked like a bit of a barrier trial leading into this race, and it was a race restricted to a certain level of benchmark, and I've got a sneaking suspicion I might have been barking up the right tree there, because this horse it was going a bit better than I think the market anticipated, and does have a sharp turn of foot when ridden the way it was. It was a really good ride. Everything panned out perfectly. I think that's as good as the horse could have looked. And there was a couple of horses pulled up with issues in the race. Oak the Waratah was good again. A pretty talented horse that was obviously set for this race, and they got the most out of it. Anaropa gave it a nice enough ride. But yeah, I think things worked out perfectly here. I don't think there's any horses to follow apart from Toes on the Nose was really good. Sat wide, no cover. Probably talked about the race in general more than the runs in this race. I'm sorry for that. It wasn't a very exciting race. This is Toes in the Nose out wide. Sustained effort after sitting wide, no cover in a bit of an ugly run race, and sort of stuck on well. They're not beaten far. So it was probably the run of the race outside of the winner. And, most of these horses, as you can see, there's not much between them. Pretty one-pace types that you have to find the right race with the right set of circumstances to get home. And Sweet Mercy was the outlier in the race with that sharp turn of foot that no one else had, and got the right run and took advantage of it. Winners Stakes. Worth talking about this race for a few reasons. Interesting race, as in no one wanted to lead, which is quite incredible. They're not going slow, so a good tactical ride, I thought, from Willow to push forward. I talked about before the race, it was kind of all about who pushed forward was going to give them the advantage, and Willow took it upon himself to do that. I thought it might have been Nash on Private Eye, but he took the sit. What's interesting here is I think Willow was probably entitled, after he hadn't gone too quick, to hold the front here. You can see he's actively restraining his horse to try and take the sit now behind Cold Crusher. That nearly cost him the race. So whilst I think he took the race by the scruff of the neck early and earned the win, he nearly handed it back by handing the front to Cold Crusher, who's probably not the ideal horse to follow into the race. You let Think About It, who obviously was the dominant favourite, box him in, and then you've got Private Eye coming around their heels with all the momentum and having an ideal trip throughout. Have absolutely every chance. So incredible that Bellini Patina was able to pick itself up after losing momentum at the sort of 250 metre mark to get over the top of a horse like Private Eye. One out to a mile, was placed in a Everest last start after sitting wide, ran past Think About It, who, they didn't go that quick. They sort of went even early, slowed down to the 600 metre mark and zipped home. So it's a really good win from a mare who was a bit suspect at 1,300 metres probably. A great ride in the end. The tactics at the start won in the race. Tactics during the middle nearly cost him the race. If he had held the lead, I think it would have won by 2 or 3 lengths, and we would have been talking about one of the best rides we've ever seen. So, yeah, overall, a great ride. Just nearly went pear-shaped. A great performance. I see that Think About It's already in the paddock. I assume that Private Eye will be following the same path. I think they both had enough off the back of that. Cold Crusher's ready to win a race. Probably went a little bit too slow again there. And he's ready to win a race when the good top-level horses drop off. And that was about it out of that race. I didn't think there was much else to note. Golden Eagle, and another amazing race here where they absolutely crawl. They go slow to the 800, which is incredible in a 20-horse race in itself. They slow it down even further from the 8 to the 6, a huge drop in speed from the 8 to the 6, and then they get home fast, but not really for the race. But this is the leaders. The winner certainly gets home quick, but horses overall certainly didn't run fast time here. So a pretty average race on paper, and that's mainly due to the tempo, but that was what made it really ugly. So Golden Mile is allowed to dictate from the front. Pericles takes the sit. Obviously, that was the game plan from Godolphin, and it worked out probably even better than they thought. I'd imagine that they were of the opinion that the Waterhouse crew may press, which they don't. I thought Nash erred not to be closer on Hawaii 5-0, and maybe that was due to the stablemates being in the race. He sort of had to take a sit because they needed to find a position as well. I think if they had given it a bit more of a dominant role in the race, he would have been in a much better position to sort of get out, wind up, and the result may have been different for him. We stop it here because Amelia's Jewel is the horse that gets smashed here. So at this point, we've got Josh on Obama Buramai. You've got Nash on Hawaii 5-0, Pericles, Golden Mile, the 2 Waterhouse, Coin Toss and New Endeavour, and then the main horse we probably look at, Legato missed the start, which was, we'll go back and look at it very, very quickly. These overheads are the greatest thing in the world for anyone who watches videos, let me tell you. So Legato's the slowest out and ends up in an awkward spot throughout and ends up having to come sort of back and wide. Its race is basically over. So here we'll stop it, sorry. So again, we've got Abam, Buramai, that's Legato behind, ends up having to go wide. Y50, Pericles, Golden Mile, they've had the best runs we've ever seen. Amelia's Jewels in the middle. The proof in the pudding here is that a horse straight ace, I know it's won to 1,500, and this is another sort of tin hat wearing theory of mine that this horse is more of a sort of backmarking 1,200, 1,300 metre horse tops. So for it to be in the finish of this race says to me they've gone really steady, and that allowed horses with a turn of foot to sort of be dominant at the end of the race. And Abam Buramai certainly showed that, an incredible turn of foot. So firstly, here's Amelia's Spirit. Amelia's Jewel, about to get smashed. I've just missed it. So it gets smashed in between him when straight ace. He comes on top of it, absolutely crushes it, takes it out of play. Nash is trying to get off the inside of Hawaii 5-0. That presents the run to Josh on Abam Buramai, who gets the wood on him there, and is able to accelerate away from him, get his head of steam up a little bit early. So, yeah, I think in hindsight, Nash should have ridden his horse out more aggressively at the start, which we saw him just take a sit. This horse was right there. I think if he had stuck with Pericles here early and held the 1-1 position or outside leader or any other position than what he did, the result for him may have been very different. It's very interesting that sort of even New Endeavour not taking the front off Pericles, he waited. It's a bit like a trot race. He's held that spot on Pericles for long enough until Golden Mile, hitting the Golden Eagle, was able to come around. So very interesting tactical race. The disappointment of the race was probably Kovalika, who just went poorly. I'm not sure of the explanation there, but it's just had a tough prep and staying at the mile. I don't think they'll do that again in the future. A really talented horse won the race. There were hard luck stories in the race. You could make cases, obviously, that Kovalik failed. Legato missed the start and faced a huge task from there. A little bit of a poor ride or unlucky ride from Nash on Hawaii 5-0. He didn't do a lot wrong. Certainly not blaming him. And Amelia's Jewel getting smacked. So, a few things went right for the winner, but a high-class win nonetheless. Had to overcome a slow tempo. It's not as if it had an absolute perfect trip itself. A very talented, strong, sprinting, sharp, sustained sprint to win the race. And you can't ask for any more than that. And the horse has certainly produced it. It's come home, over 9 lengths above standard for the grade. Last 400, 6 lengths above the last 200. So you don't see horses coming home much faster than that, even off the back of a slow tempo. I talked about the Golden Eagle for long enough. This has turned from a speed review into a long-winded review. But these races are interesting to me for various reasons. I'll jet through these last two. Some terrible rides here, very slow tempo. They went slow. They slowed down even further. So we had a really slow tempo, turned into an anchor drop as well. From the 8th to the 6th, they absolutely crawled. And I think a bit unlucky here. I think No Compromise probably should have won the race, and I could make a case that Skylab should have gone very close as well. Stockman's a good effort. We'll sort of go through further. You can see how slow they're going. It's an embarrassment of a race. No tempo whatsoever in the race. At least he makes a move on Stockman to identify that they're going that slow that he can roll forward. Sam Clipperton and Wild Planet, who's not known for his staying ability to this point, is the horse that sort of capitalises on that tag up. I think he might even be wider there, to be honest. So it's not as if he's got a perfect drag into the race. You can see he's nearly pulling himself into the race. They've gone that slow to this point. Stroke of Luck's on his back. Stop the race here. Basically, Skylab has never been put into the race at any stage. No Compromise is stuck in the worst position possible behind a couple of Olaraki that's incapable of accelerating, and the leader. These horses are coming around with a bit more momentum. Stroke of Luck's had a nice enough run to overcome that position. Shipley's in the middle, sort of held up ugly as well. This is No Compromise getting really held up in behind. Skylab never gets a chance to really wind up. Once it does, it runs out of room again late. Just tactically poor rides, I thought. I thought No Compromise could have stayed off the fence and raced closer in the run. And you can see the two of them basically going to the line hard held. Good enough rides. I think things went the way of the winner. I'm not going to knock it too heavily because, slow tempo, ugly race. Those up on speed certainly had their chance. A little bit outsprinted. Canberra Legend was certainly outsprinted, just went way too slow. And you can see Stockman as well, sort of coming again late. He's probably ready to go now, up to 2,400 metres. Just outsprinted in a slow run race. I think that kind of suited Shock'em because it does have that sharp turn of foot, even though it was ridden way too cold. I think if it got on its bike a little bit early, it probably would have outsprinted the leaders, but sort of left two big guitars from back there and sort of got to the outside. And it's done a good job to get as close as it did. Third, the Shock'em fastest last 200 of the day, sort of adjusted. And he's done a huge job against the tempo so with better rides, I think, Shock'em could have won for sure, and No Compromise and Skylab certainly could have won. The race just really ugly, slow run race, and I think we've heard enough about it. I think Stockman's ready to go, and, No Compromise is airborne with no luck. Skylab's obviously going better than his form reads, and complete forgive for Canberra Legend, and Shock'em is airborne as well. I wouldn't let the really slow overall time affect your thoughts going forward. It was just a really ugly, slow run race. The last, and this horse is going really well, handled really well by the trainer, Way to the Stars. It's found the right races and things have gone its way at all three runs back, but he got beaten second up, but still ran well behind Stanislaw, and he gave it a trial in between last start and now. He's done a great job. They go a little bit quick early, gets a little bit of pressure from Tristate, but just the nature of 1,100 metres around Rosehill, always leader sympathetic. He's done enough to hold that position up in front. Kicked and won well. I think Jetabil's probably had enough this preparation. It runs, pretty average considering the run it had, and Define Heart. He's got a bit of blockerage here, is what I'm saying. Tristate with the junior rider outside, a bit of blockerage, and then Justin Reach in coming from sort of country provincial grade up to this grade for the first time. Smashing Eagle maybe doesn't look quite the same horse as what we saw earlier in the prep. Ben Vico, very disappointing. And which horse is this? This is 7-act, sort of really untested to the line for the second time in about 4 starts. pretty inexplicable, the ride on 7 But yeah, I'm not going to be too harsh on Zach. His confidence is not that high at the moment. So yeah, good ride on the winner. Took advantage of the characteristics of the track. Led, kicked off the bend, did enough. But I think this form is going to be only steady. The time overall was just okay, right on par. They went out, just slightly below to the 800, quickened up the last 600. So, quickened up from the 8 to the 6, and then slowed down a little bit the last bit. Pretty even tempo overall. A little bit stop start, which is not bad for a leader around this track, but not excessively so. And yeah, I don't think there's much to report in the last. Cheers, guys. I think the most interesting horse, there's a few horses to follow, but I thought that Left Me Rain was an interesting horse that may go around at big odds in the right race in the next couple, but does need to be able to control the speed of the race, get the lead and control over, 1,600 metres or 1,800 metres, something like that, find the right level, and I think it may go around over the odds. So it's the horse to follow with a few caveats. Cheers, guys.